Hello and welcome back to AI in Focus. I'm your host, Chad Pytel, CEO and developer at thoughtbot, and I'm joined today by Senior Product Manager at thoughtbot, Danny Kim. Danny, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So, one of the things that we're going to do today is explore different options for someone who's not a developer like yourself. You're a product manager at thoughtbot, to automate tasks that you might have as a product manager. Um, and so, why don't you give a little bit of background about, because this is something that you were pushing on and trying to make happen. Where did it start for you?
Yeah, you know, I just kind of naturally think about things from a product perspective. And so, any project, any kind of product that you're working on, you're obviously going to have like a backlog. You're going to have things in progress, similar to like a very Kanban board style things.
Hmm.
And at Thoughtbot, we have, a lot of internal projects that we like to run as well. And one of the weeks, and for a little bit of time, I was kind of helping with release notes and making sure that like our go to market and just the kind of like company wide announcements and stuff were happening smoothly. Um, and as I was doing it, it's essentially like our process is like we have a done column and we'll
Hmm.
read through all the different things and then write up a summary of those kinds of like what we've accomplished for any given week. As I was writing it, as much as it's fun because like I try to add a little bit of a twist and write a lot of terrible puns. Um, I started to run out of ideas, and also like it's very manual. So you're just
Hmm.
sitting there, kind of reading through every single thing, and then trying to understand it, get some context, and then like write up a summary for it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't help but think like, there's no way that this can't be done faster automatically. And I've heard a lot of things around like AI is changing the world and it's going to like take over the world by storm. And a lot of product managers I've heard and some PM friends that I've had have been starting to experiment with it to the point where they were like, I think it's getting close to a place where even PMs could, people who have like no technical background or very little
Yeah.
technical background, can start to write applications that are relatively robust or even a lot more robust than we might have imagined. So something that I'm used to is looking at like Zapier, which is like your low code, no code friendly
Hmm.
interface kind of thing. And then, but writing an application from scratch is just like, where do I even start? I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it came from. I was like, I want to explore it. I want to see what it means, see how like how much I can get into it and see what I'm capable of doing. So
Cool.
that's where it kicked off. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do two things. We're going to use Cursor to generate code to do the automated summary. It's going to talk to a Trello via APIs and pull down the cards. And it's going to write a markdown summary of the work. And it's going to use Google Gemini to generate that summary.
Mhm.
So this is the real board that we're talking about here. It's actually a team at thoughtbot that we have that works on internal stuff. It's particularly people who don't happen to be on client work that week. They're booked on a team that we lovingly call Space Station. And it's got blog posts that we'd like to see, improvements to our internal systems, improvements to our website, new design and development things. Here's a thing to set up Google Postmaster tools that I started this week. New designs for some of our social media cards. The cool new intro video that you just saw at the start of this was one of the things that we work on Space Station. So then, as Danny was saying, everything eventually flows across the Kanban board to get to this done column. And then we batch everything up into the release notes and post it for the whole company about what we accomplished. So this is the real live Trello board. So let's go over to Cursor. Oh, and then in the second part, so we're going to generate a Ruby application that you can run locally that does this. The second part, we're going to see if we can do pretty much the same thing using Zapier, which is a little bit more visual and plug and play. And I think it's probably important calling out that the hot new word in AI for the last few months has been agents or agentic stuff. Basically, this is the concept of moving from just information responses, answering questions, doing that kind of thing, to having LLMs be able to do things for you. And when you do that, the LLMs can sort of piece together different tools and put together something that can actually do something. In a lot of ways, what we're doing today is the building blocks for having an agent. An agent just means an AI tool maybe pieces together multiple things that actually do something. And so at the end, we're going to have this thing that posts these release notes that essentially is an agent. So that's what people talk about when they talk about agents. It's things that actually do things. Okay. So let's go over to Cursor, which we used last time. Danny, you've written up essentially what a PRD, a product requirements document for what we're doing here. So this is taking a very product manager approach, what I think is really cool, but also think about it. If we can get to the point where a product manager can take some requirements, write those out, and then give them to something that actually generates the application that does that, that's really something pretty big. Now, I suspect that what we're going to see along the way is that the same thing that we saw last time, is that it does need a lot of guidance in order to get something which is not only useful, but of a high quality. And so that's what we haven't done this yet. We're doing it live. You've done some exploration, but I haven't done it yet. So that's what I'm going into this. I'm expecting, especially based on last week's stream, that we're going to need to guide this quite a bit. We're going to run into some problems, but at the end of the day, it is going to get us to a spot where this is working.
Yeah.
And if you saw last stream, we sort of at the end, Sally and I were both feeling like, well, we don't really understand. We got to a place that was working, but the code happened to us as opposed to us actually writing it. So we didn't necessarily have full understanding of what it was doing.
Yeah. I will say full transparency too. Like Chad mentioned that I had done a little bit of, trial runs and stuff too. Just like playing around on my own just to see what this was. And the first, from a PM's perspective, the first day, like solid 4 to 6 hours, was literally like installing Ruby, like
Mhm.
just getting things set up. And it wasn't as intuitive from that perspective. Like if I just wrote this thing out and then like pressed enter or something like that, because I started off with like, help me create a Ruby application. And that was like my first prompt.
Mhm.
And it was just like, okay, well, you need to install these things. And I like tried to go through it. It took a lot longer than I expected. So it's not quite like plug and play. You just like press a button and then like everything is
Yeah.
perfectly done for you. But so there's a little bit of, just that kind
Yeah.
of setup. So for
That's
people who are
important
not
to note
technical,
too, because we're going to be doing
yeah,
this on my computer, which is already set up for Ruby development. Or,
right.
we could use JavaScript or something for this, and my computer is already all set up for that.
Yeah.
Just a short plug: I'm the maintainer of our open source project at github.com/thoughtbot/laptop, which you can use to set up your computer for a development environment relatively quickly, a standard development environments that we use. So cool. So let's just take a look at this PRD. So help me create a Ruby application with the following requirements. The app must ingest data from the completed Trello cards from our internal working board. Um, Title of the card, members of the card, description, comments. And then the app must write a summary of the work completed using the ingested data and credit the members who've contributed to the work. Technical details: the app must leverage Ruby. The app must integrate with Gemini. The app must integrate with Trello to pull the cards from this board and this column. Done. In JSON format and be able to feed it into Gemini. The app must use the provided sample summary.md file. And that's a file that we have over here. Let's go over and look at that. This is an example of a previous update that you wrote, right?
Hmm. Sorry for the terrible puns, but
Hey, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to keep life
it's true.
interesting.
It's true.
I think we should probably add, what do you think? Just adding that the credentials for the APIs are in the .env file.
We could try
What do you
that. I
think?
mean, I'd also be curious even
Okay.
without doing it to see if it
Okay.
like
Yeah,
actually
sure.
generates something.
Yeah, I don't want to jump too far ahead. Okay. The summary will be output in Markdown in a file on my desktop file format. Okay. Um, what actually, let's just redo so everyone can see the thing. The way it works is you select two files over here and you say add files to Cursor Composer. That adds them to the context of the composer. And we're going to switch into agent mode. So agent composers can use tools, run terminal commands, and edit files. Normal mode um, is they can't necessarily use tools in the same way and run terminal commands. So it's a little bit more powerful as well. Okay, so what do? We copy and paste this over here?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're using Claude 3.5 Sonnet for this. Okay, so the first thing is it does is it looked at the thing here and said, create a gem file. A gem file is a thing that organizes the dependencies that we're going to have, that provides libraries for doing things. I see off the top of my head, as a Ruby developer, we've got the Ruby Trello API, Ruby Cloud APIs, the .m file, which is used for pulling credentials from a .m file. So it picked that up. Thor is a CLI library for making Ruby CLI programs, and Zeitwerk is for auto-loading files. So because we're in agent mode, it didn't ask us whether we wanted to create those files. It just automatically created them. You can see them over on the left-hand side here, and it automatically set them up. It then automatically ran bundle install. That's why we have a gem file lock, I believe.
These are the nuances that I did not pick up on when I was playing around. I was like, it just started creating stuff, and I was like, whoa, okay, like that's
Yeah.
cool.
It's neat that it created a README file.
Hmm.
Um, that's funny. Um, with instructions. The command is going to be bin generate notes. Um, that's really funny. Um, okay, now let's create the main application structure. I'll create the necessary directories and files. So one thing that agent mode won't do is it won't run command line. It can create new files using the sort of cursor editor, but it can't do command line things without your permission. So
Hmm.
it's not going to make directories, it's not going to remove files, it's not going to do those kinds of things without your permission so that you can see and understand what it's doing and then approve it. So in this case, it's going to make 3 directories, uh, sorry, 2 directories, lib release notes and the bin directory. That looks safe to me. So we're
Mhm.
going to run that. So it runs it. You can see it created it over here. Okay, so now it's creating um, a release notes.rb file that is going to set up Zitework, the autoloader, configure Trello. So I'm not telling it to do anything. It's just doing all of those things. We're just following along for the ride here. Um,
How close is this to the way that you might think about this,
so
if you
far,
were
this
approaching
is
it?
this is what I would do if I was writing the app.
Wow.
Now let's create the main CLI interface. So it's introducing the CLI class that descends from Thor. Has a generate method, which is going to generate things. So
So,
it's oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask, what? So when I wrote that, I wanted it to be executable from like a CLI. All I'm really saying is just like I would just want it to run it locally.
Hmm.
Um, do you? Does that mean that it's adding extra complexity here by creating this sort of thing, or is it just like I could have just it would if I left that out, would it have just created a Ruby application that I would just have to like run manually myself?
Yeah, it would have probably created a Ruby application that you just have to run yourself. But Thor
Interesting.
is nice because it's gonna, like, for example, we'll be able to generate release notes help, and it will like output. It'll just handle arguments and that kind of stuff
Oh wow.
for you. So it is sort of nice. Okay, you can
Oh,
see it's generating a file name in the format that we specified in our PRD, and it's putting it in the desktop because you said on the desktop.
yeah.
Actually, let me expand the width of this. Okay, so it got to the point where it's creating the executable script. It knows we need to change mod that to be executable. And again, it's not going to run anything on the command line. So, okay. Now the application is ready to use. Here's what you need to do to get started. First, install the required dependencies, create a .env file, which we already did, and run the application. The application will fetch all completed cards from the specified Trello board, done list. Okay, so it says that it thinks that it did everything to make working software here.
Just like that.
Um, do we want to just run it or do we want to look at the code first?
I mean, I would be curious just to run it, just because if
Okay.
I were, doing this, I would probably have no idea what to do. So I would just be like, all right, let's run this, see what happens.
Okay, so we're going to run bundle install. Could not find a
Ooh.
gem, Google Cloud AI Core in Ruby Gems.
Huh.
So, couple things are possible. One is it totally hallucinated this gem. Another is that it just there's a typo or something. So one of the things that Cursor can do is we can tell it run, bundle, install within the composer. And then if we do that, it's going to run the command and it's going to look at the output. And then when it sees the error, it's going to say, okay, it's going to start to try to fix it automatically. So I apologize for the error. It seems I made a mistake with the Gemini API gem name. Let me correct the gem file with the proper gem names for the Google AI integration. Now let's try installing the dependencies again. So it corrected it, and it's going to try to do it again. Okay. So I don't know at this point whether it's just making stuff up or not. It's sort of funny, and this is the kind of thing you can get into with these tools, is like this loop of now it's going and it's changing a whole bunch of stuff based on a change that it made, but that change might actually be wrong. The good thing is it puts a marker down before it goes off and does things. So if it turns out that that was wrong, we can scroll back up and we can restore back to that point. So actually, that time it got the gem file right. Would you like me to help you set? We're all set setting the environment variables. Google Cloud Project ID. Does that ring a bell to you, Danny?
No, I would,
Okay.
at this point, I would have just been like, how do I set up my Google project?
Okay, so the Gemini service is expecting to use a project ID. I have no idea whether this is correct or not. Did you have to set up a project in the Google Cloud platform before?
I might have done that, but then I don't think I've ever used. So I just started like creating things that it told me to create.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, I think I created a Google project, but I also don't think that I have like a Google project ID.
Yeah.
Like in my test, like in one of my tests, it was, I think I'm just using like a Gemini API key.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me like, it makes me wonder if it's like, oh, is it using the right API overall?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there a different thing? Like that might be something that I would probably end up checking. But that's a rabbit hole that I could go down.
Right. Okay, so this, I mean, I've created projects to use Google APIs before. This is the right place to go. So we can go over there. The other option is we could do this with an existing project. So we can create a new project. Oh, okay. We've hit our project limit. Let's just use the project ID for that already exists for a project.
Okay.
I'm just gonna open a new terminal window off the screens because I'm going to open a file that has the API keys in it. Google Cloud project. Okay. Cool. So we have the project, we set it to the right variable. So we need to enable the required APIs. So if we go to API services library, search for the Vertex AI API. This is the API that includes Gemini. Okay, we'll enable it. Requires a project with a billing account. It has one. Enable billing for Project Hub app. You're not an administrator. Who am I? Oh, I'm not logged in as my admin account.
It's like, if you're not it, who is?
For security purposes, we have separate user and admin accounts. It's a good security practice, people. If you're not already doing it and you go through a security certification, they're going to make you do it. Or create a new billing account. Okay. Let me switch to my oh wait, no, I clicked on switch me back. With a issue I'm running into is this admin account is not on that project.
For the record, if I were doing this, I would have this would be a quit point. I would say figure out another way to do this without using this thing. That's probably what I would have done.
So what I'm seeing here is build with the Gemini 1.5 Flash and 1.5 Pro using the Gemini API for developers was a separate thing here. Do you remember what you had to enable?
I'd never enabled anything on any of these things. Yeah.
Okay.
So I wonder, I'd be curious if it's potentially just using there's got to be a way to just do it with the.
Okay, well, let's actually, I already set the project ID. So, I don't know where. Actually, do you have a config file where you had the key and whether there was a project or not?
Config file, you mean?
Or just like where your Gemini API key was set? Was there a project being set to?
Main check. open up my own.
Okay. So if we go over to the code, while you look at that, I'm just going to go over to the code. There's the Gemini service. I'm just curious.
Of a ENB file with, I have only a Gemini API key in there.
Yeah, I suspect that this is wrong. Like it's gotten it wrong in terms of the. So maybe we do Ruby, Google, Gemini. So this is a gem that someone besides Google has created uh, for interacting with Gemini. And you can see that just uses the API key.
Oh.
So that's one option. Here's another gem. Obtain an API key from your Google Cloud project.
Oh, I think I have a Google Auth gem so that it uses Google Auth for the Google API. It's the only gem that I can see that's relevant to that.
Okay. Well, let's so we could ask to use the Gemini AI gem.
Mhm.
Let me make this a little bigger. Which should be much simpler.
It was much simpler. Why didn't we start with that?
Okay. So the Gemini service now looks like it's being configured with the Gemini API key. And does that match what's over here? New credentials, service, API key. No. Well, let's try running it and see what happens.
Sure.
So uninitialized constant release notes, CLI. So what we can do is
Oh, you might have to
Again, we can.
accept all the changes, like in the bottom right in the completed. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So by running the command in the composer, then it will look at the errors and potentially fix them.
Right.
So my guess is Gemini, the latest versions of Gemini just sort of came out a little while ago, right?
Mhm.
So my guess is that that's part of the issue that we're running into is that the model might not know the actual wasn't trained on information that contained the actual command,
Yeah.
libraries that exist today. That's just a
Oh.
hunch.
If that's the
Doing.
case, that could be a little bit tricky, because especially as like API versions or like these, yeah, all these different models like change over time,
Mhm.
because they change pretty quickly, I feel like, especially now. Um, like you're kind of always working off of something outdated or potentially something that's already been sunset. I think I ran into that a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what problem it's having now. I think that it's gotten into a loop where it was trying to yeah.
Oh, it's definitely struggling.
Oh, it's waiting for me to click run command. So, see, did you mean release notes CLI? So, um, so it's not fixing the problem. Let me fix the generate notes. Uh, see if that actually fixes the problem. I think it may have. Uh, okay, error generating release notes, undefined method configure for module Gemini. So, and that's because, like I said, it switched it to use the gem, but it didn't actually use the gem correctly. Gemini service. Um, this is not how you configure this gem based on the documentation for the gem over here.
Mhm.
So I could see two ways of fixing this. We could give it this information that this is how you configure the gem.
Mhm.
I'm worried that it's just not going to get it right. Like we're going down a hole here of it's just not. We asked it to switch the gem that it was using. It's not going to get it right. So I'm hesitant to keep on going down the path of trying to get that to fix itself.
Yeah. I mean, also to zoom out too, like we might maybe this is where we put a pin in it and
Hmm.
say, like, we can try the zap method, because we've spent about 30 to 40 minutes on this.
Yeah.
And so this is about as far as we've gotten. We've clearly gotten into like a bunch of loops, and I'm curious how Zapier would.
I am curious about trying one more thing,
Yep.
and that is to ask it to switch to OpenAI.
Ooh, okay, okay. So for the
Um,
audience, the reason why I personally did not use OpenAI was because you're asked to pay for all the calls, and so I was like, okay, never mind. I'm going to go the free route, and uh, so yeah, I just went
Now
to
I
Gemini.
have a key that is a paid OpenAI API account, so we'll be able to switch over, and we'll see whether that works.
Nice.
Okay, never mind Gemini.
ChatGPT. Yeah, OpenAI is
Let's
not a sponsor of this
let's
channel.
use OpenAI instead with the Ruby OpenAI gem. Actually, let me just make sure I'm not. Yes. Okay. Okay. So it updates the gem file.
Is Claude part of OpenAI as well, or
No, Claude is by Anthropic. It's a whole
okay,
nother
okay.
entity.
I was gonna say could have been sabotaging all the Gemini stuff. It's like, oh no, I don't know why this Gemini stuff doesn't work. Have you tried OpenAI? Okay.
Okay. And it
Oh,
switched to OpenAI API key. Let me just make sure that that's what I named it. Yep, I did. Um, okay. Uninitialized constant release notes CLI OpenAI service. I'm just checking this myself because I no longer trust that it's going to fix itself properly. So my inclination is to check myself. Uh, Here, we'll just accept all the changes. And then we have the release notes.rb file. Okay, I'm not quite seeing what the problem is, so
hmm.
let's I didn't think we needed to explicitly do it because um we're using Zitework, and I thought it would have automatically loaded
Hmm.
that correctly. That's actually correct. It's DSC, not description spelled out, if I remember right, for the Trello API. I have no idea whether that's right or not. So it really is able to get into a loop of fixing the problems as long as it's actually able to.
Hmm.
But when it then does it wrong and gets down the wrong path, okay, the server responded with status 400. It looks like we're getting an authentication error.
Oh,
Um, so Trello service is using where is Trello configured? Right here. Trello API token, Trello API key, developer public key. That honestly doesn't seem right to me. Um, uh, okay, let's try Trello Ruby gem. Oh, okay. Developer public key and member token.
oh, Trello member token. I wonder what that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're doing, and it's using the Trello API token and the API key
Mm.
values that you had. Okay. I think now we should cut over to Zapier. What do you think?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
I mean, at this
So
point, it's an auth thing, which is probably
mm,
solvable, easier.
probably solvable, but
Yeah.
okay. So if we go over to Zapier, for those who don't know, Zapier is a tool where they sort of integrate with a lot of different services. They have a visual builder for connecting those services together and doing things with it. So we're going to try to implement the same thing. Now, the interesting thing is they have an AI builder now. Uh, and so you can do create Zap and what can I help you automate? So in theory, we could post that PRD document, a version of it, but we just need to remove the like Ruby application.
Yeah.
So help me do the following. Do we want to try this or do we just want to try to build it ourselves?
Let's try it. I mean, might as well
Okay.
see what. Yeah, that would probably be what I would try to do anyway. So
I know that ChatGPT is connected to our Zapier account, so I'm just changing that.
probably will not be executed via CLI.
Oh yeah.
We want to change the Gemini as well. It won't feed it to Gemini. It would feed it to ChatGPT.
Okay. Okay, let's see what it does. We've modified this to be that. Let's see what it does. So we have not tried this. Okay. Card move to list, create card. The app automates the generation of work summaries with Trello card movements by retrieving card details and generating a markdown summary. Crediting involved members. Here's how you can build your Zap. Card move to list, create card, analyze and return data, format. This is not right. We don't want to create any Trello cards.
No.
Okay, let's bail. We're gonna create a trigger, and I think that the trigger can be on the case. It can be a schedule. So every week, we want to generate this summary. What day do we want to do it on?
Let's do it a Friday.
Friday is at the end of the week. And we can do it at 7 in the morning, so it's there for us
Yeah.
when we start work for the day. That's gonna work. Okay. So then it says, okay, what are we gonna do with that next time? So we can do Trello integration, and what we want to do is get find list on board, and so it's already connected to our Trello account, so we'll be able to did I click the wrong thing? There we go. No options are available. Did I choose the wrong account? I would expect that to have worked, but let's try with a different account.
Seems like it'll be the one.
So we have our space station board and the list. Actually, I think we're going to need that clever emoji in there. Mark safely halted and skip steps that use the search result. Okay, that's what we want. We don't want to create the list if it doesn't exist. I'm going to test that step. So we got the list. We can see that that response includes all of the cards that are on the list.
Nice.
So then what do we want to do with that?
Now that we have the list, we would want to summarize it.
Yeah. So we can go right to ChatGPT here. And we can, so there's a lot of different options. Basically, all of the OpenAI, a bunch of the OpenAI functionality is there. If you have existing assistants set up in ChatGPT, you can use them from Zapier. You can do things like convert text to speech, create a new assistant. Send a prompt to OpenAI and generate a completion that uses the legacy one. We recommend the new one. Okay, so I think that's what we're going to do. Create a conversation and generate a completion. So we have the user message. We could supply images or a memory key. A memory key is a place in OpenAI where you can store additional information. And then you have the assistant instructions. Okay. So using the following information from Trello, from completed Trello cards, generate a summary of the work done. What do we want to highlight? Actually, we don't even need to do that. We have an example, right?
Yeah. Oh, can we?
Yeah.
Is it possible to input that as the sample? Oh, we would just copy and paste it. Okay.
I was just going to copy and paste it.
Nice.
Okay, let's run that and see. I'm a little worried why it says max tokens is 1,024. And we're going to assistant instructions. You are a experienced product manager. Okay, let's run it and see what we get. So Zapier, has the ability to run these things and test them. It's going to show us the output here of what comes out, data out. So this is here's the response, the reply. Space Station update, February 7th through the 13th. Greetings, everyone. As we sail through this week, I want to take a moment to reflect on the stellar work accomplished by our fantastic crew. Let's dive into the highlights. So thoughtbot.com, the blog logs, a treasure trove of updates waiting to be explored. Daniel refreshed several older blog posts to boost SEO and generate more leads. Is this real?
This is our old one.
Is this what in the sample format? Okay. So there is nothing about dates in this. It doesn't know when these cards were completed. So that would be one thing we might do. Completed Trello from the Trello cards completed in the last week. Let's see then if it changes the but let's go over to the board. Is this the actual things?
I don't think it's the same.
No, there are blog posts updated, but Kelly did them.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take the credit, but
let's see. Let's run it again and see what, then we can look closer at it. I got distracted by, I clicked the wrong thing. Well, we're live. Go to edit Zap, and then we can go over to test, and we retest it. Oh, we're off the stream here. What's that? Yeah, so thanks for the question, Antonio. We're using we've moved over to Zapier, and we're trying to re-implement in Zapier what we had done in our Ruby code that was generated with Cursor. So we have a prompt going on. So here's the reply now.
Greetings,
Space Station update. It's getting the tone right.
Yeah.
But October 15th to the 21st.
Also, who's Alex?
Yeah. So when you were doing this before? Was it hallucinating a lot?
No, it was. I've never done it through Zap, but through like the ChatGPT one, when I would just like copy and paste the JSON file, that was the first iteration ever. Was
Oh,
just like
wait,
I would.
hold on a second. I see what's happening. We never actually put in the the Trello card data. So it's generating an entire made up summary.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It was just going off.
Amazing. Um, so we got to click on the plus here, and then we can
Oh, I
do
see. That's funny.
um, that's something. I'm just looking for the sometimes in Zapier like so it's taken a JSON file and then it's made every attribute of that available.
Mhm.
Um, I sort of just want to get. I don't know if there's a way to do this. Honestly, I just want to get it to give the whole. Uh, yeah, it certainly is, Brian. I'm looking. So I'm looking in Zapier. Um, I don't know off the top of my head whether there's a way to basically get it to output the raw stuff, because otherwise it's going to be. See what I'm see like we
Yeah.
have the individual um like it's this is going to be all the descriptions of the cards.
Mhm.
In theory we could do this and it's going. Actually the labels probably aren't important. What else did we want?
The name.
Titles,
Yeah.
name, card's name.
Description, comments, and like members.
So the members here is gonna just be IDs.
Mhm.
So we can add a step to find Trello, and then find member. Oh, it's not gonna be able to get a list of all. Finds a member in your Trello organization by name. That's not gonna work.
Oh, so right now it's just going to spit out all the IDs of each individual, but not their actual names.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, let's just see what it does.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if that gets any better. Okay, we now have the Okay, space station update, February 7th through the 13th. Oh no, that's the
My old
example,
one, yeah.
sorry. Okay, reply.
There it is.
Happy Valentine's Day, folks. Um, so that it still has the week wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's also stealing my jokes.
Well, that the AIs are out to get our jokes,
I
Danny.
know. It's the number one threat.
Cloud Cost Chronicles, slashing costs and maximizing efficiency. We took significant steps in AWS cost optimization by addressing flight deck's acceptance test cluster to ensure it's ephemeral. So this is an actual thing. The
Mhm.
initiative is expected to cut costs from roughly $800 a month to a minimal amount by deploying and deleting resources post testing. Um, okay. So as we're doing this with Zapier, we're really running into this limit of we want this structured data of the card, what's on the card, so that we can then say like link the cards,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And like, I just don't know that it's going to be able to do it. And I wonder, let's just try this one thing. Did you include links in your example?
It didn't.
Oh, okay.
Oh, actually, I technically did, but
They didn't carry over to this
they were
example.
links. Yeah, they were links to like different web pages and stuff. So if like we created a new blog, then I would like link to the blog post. Um,
Okay. Follows the example format below. So I'm going to just add a few things. Do
mhm.
not make only include information that is actually provided above. Okay, we got a reply. Okay, weekly. It's still getting the date wrong. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's wrap up, where we showcase the progress we've made and the exciting developments happening across our teams. Okay, so it linked. Oh, the full URLs have the words of the title in them. So
Oh,
it's going to be able to mostly correctly associate that.
yeah.
It did. So, okay, now I have an idea. Let's then create a card.
Oh, to spit it out into a card.
Yep. At the top of the done column. And those cards take markdown format. So
Right.
in their description. So not only is that going to be useful, it'll allow us to see it as formatted markdown.
Yeah.
And you just choose the response. Yeah, the reply. We'll put at the top. Okay. Okay, so now if we go over to here, we have our new card.
Oh,
Um,
it does seem to be grouping work, which is
mhm.
surprising. I wasn't expecting it to be able to do that. With the
Oh, these neat
links.
because you don't even it's posted to the board, so you don't even leave the board
Yeah.
when you click on the cards. So these links are correct. And I think, like I said, I think the reason why is because they include the URLs.
Mhm.
The title of the card
This is
appears
full
again in
title,
the
yeah.
URL. This is interesting. The date is still wrong. I don't have an I'm gonna archive this. We'll recreate it. I don't why would the date be wrong?
Especially if because you do specify for the work this past week.
Yeah, I mean, maybe ChatGPT doesn't actually know what week it is. I thought that it would be able to respond to that, but completed. So the way that we would solve this in Zapier is uh,
You would have to create a date range for like beginning of week, end of week or something.
completed in the we could actually say the week ending, and then we have a variable from our scheduled thing every week.
Yeah.
Uh, so now it's going to say completed in the week ending February 27th.
Yeah.
So let's retest that and see whether that gets the date correctly now. It just says week ending
Just
February 27th.
it's quite literal.
And then when you click on continue, then you can go to test. Retest it. It's going to use the new thing.
Honestly, this is further than we've like this has been another what like 30 or so minutes. This
Uh-huh.
is definitely further than we've gotten before.
Yeah. Yeah.
For something quick and dirty, like this is definitely more accessible, I would say.
Yeah. I just noticed something. This latest one doesn't include the links.
Oh.
Um,
I wonder well
did we change something? Well, what do we say in the prompt? Using the file, generate a summary of the work done that follows the only include Oh, we never told it
to technically include the links, I
to
guess.
link. So it was just doing it out of the kindness of its heart previously. When possible, include a link to the relevant card.
Oh, it actually got the week range correct.
See, so this is the wonderful thing about using LLMs and AI. it's non-deterministic. So last time it didn't include the range. This time it did. And honestly, for this kind of thing, it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't need to be the same every week, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, even the categories are a little bit better.
So, I mean, this seems promising as something that you could continue to tune
Yeah.
the output. How does it seem to you as a non-developer in terms of realistically coming in and making improvements and making changes and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would say this, I mean, it's not it's not as intuitive as, it's obviously marketed as, but it's still pretty doable. Like I'm not, completely technically illiterate, so
Mhm.
it seems more like, oh yeah, this all makes sense. And it's just like a couple of Google searches away from like, oh, what's the actual description? What's the like how do you pull the name like column and stuff like that. This would probably be a little bit easier to do and faster to do, even though it does require a lot of like little tune-ups. I mean, if we just even look at it from a time standpoint, it's taken 30 to 40 minutes and we've already
Mhm.
gotten a working summary. I will say it has like zero personality, but that's something to work off of, right? Rather than like
Well, we could
hitting
see,
errors.
generate a summary. When possible, include a link to the reference card. Use as many puns as possible. Let's retest it. Let's continue. Oh, we got some emojis this time.
Ooh. Ooh, okay. And it's also linking thoughtbot.com.
Buckle up for the latest and greatest in our week of sprightly updates. While I was caught in a whirlwind of tasks, I managed to steer us towards some altitude gains in the realm of product management, puns, and productivity.
What? Oh, because we told them
We're
that they're a
soaring
product
high with
manager.
savings.
Uh,
Faster than you could say cloud computing. AI assist me. SEO-tastic updates. We've taken our MVP related blog posts up a notch with SEO optimizations that are bound to put us on the digital map. There's no puns in this one.
it really lost opportunity on SEO many updates. So it's like a so many updates, but you know, it's not quite at my level just yet,
Yeah.
but we'll get there eventually, hopefully. Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
So let's anything else we want to try?
Uh, I mean, in an ideal world, we would be able to have it like receive a prompt and a theme, and it's just like write it with as many puns in this particular theme. But at
Oh,
that
so
point, we're
you would
getting a
come
little
up with the
greedy.
ideas for the
That's right.
uh-huh. Well, I mean, that's where where we can get really into like so with Zapier, you could it has a lot of things it could do. On
Mhm.
Thursdays, it could send you an email saying, "What's the theme for this week's update?"
Ooh,
Then
yeah.
when you respond to that email, Zapier can catch that as an incoming email,
Mhm.
and then use it. So that would be how you could do something like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it could integrate with Slack too, right?
Yep, it could
I mean,
Slack you and ask
theoretically, we
that
could
instead.
even, yeah, we could even have it like post into a channel and like give a poll. I mean, it would be cool if you could do that and just send the poll out to the company and it's like, what do you want the theme to be? Submit
Yeah,
your responses and the one that gets the most votes.
right. And that's a little
Oh.
bit my takeaway of this, which is had we just taken the 90 minutes and not tried to use AI to make the Ruby version of this,
Mhm,
I'm very confident that I could have just gotten something that worked. As a developer, I've integrated with Trello and everything before. Uh, I could have gotten something that worked, and I feel pretty confident that we would have done that.
mhm,
But I wouldn't be able to then just it's probably not worth the investment for me to do a Slack integration to get that, to do a bunch of tweaks to it. So that's where Zapier might be a more exciting tool because you can just start to integrate with lots of different services and not have to code each one.
yeah, yeah. Like, if we had to repeat that process of trying to get Gemini to work for
Mhm.
every single integration that we were running into, like, that's a very time-consuming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially coming from a non-technical lens, like, that would be a lot to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, next week, on AI in Focus, we're going to have Justin Bowen. Speaking of agents, Justin is the creator of a Rails gem called Active Agent. It's used for using AI LLMs, as particularly for creating agents in Rails. So it has cool built-in things like being able to automatically do webhooks and action cable to have streaming updates from the LLM and your agent and all that sort of thing. So we're actually going to be creating Ruby on Rails agents next week on the stream. So I encourage people to tune in for that. And I'm excited to have the author of the gem on the stream working with me. Danny, thank you so much for joining me
Yeah.
and for this
Thanks for
idea.
having me. I'm glad we got somewhere.
I'm glad we got somewhere too. It makes it more fulfilling when we actually make something. And I mean, I think we're close to having something that you could actually use as a basis for an update on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Oh, Antonio, it's the same time, but it's noon Eastern on Thursdays. But then you can translate that into your own time zone. But thanks for asking. That's an important call out. Um, and I think that about wraps it up for this week. So thanks again, Danny, for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Thoughtbot, we help companies of all different sizes create new products, improve their existing products. Uh, we have a tremendous amount of open source. We not only do AI, but we do web, mobile application development. So if you need help with something, please get in touch. We'd love to work with you. And we'll see you next week.